Hello, this is Alan Barton here, and today I've come to the village of Norton Disney, which is midway between Lincoln and Newark in Lincolnshire, and to the Church of St Peter, which contains a very fine set of monuments from the 14th, 15th and 16th century, commemorating the Disney family, who were the lords of the manor of Norton Disney in that period. Now, they were also the ancestors, we believe, of the more famous Walt Disney. And in 1949, Walt Disney, then in England, came for the day to Norton Disney to see the monuments of his ancestors in the Disney chapel attached to the side of this church. So I'm going to show you those monuments and give you a brief tour of this very fine church. Open the door. And in we go. We step down into the church here. The churchyard has risen over the centuries due to all the burials in it. And here we are inside Norton Disney Church. Fantastic view here looking northeast with the medieval reed screen in place. This door closed. Rebelling against me. Sorry about that sound you can hear. That is the heating coming on. It sounds like an aircraft taking off. Anyway, to get to the Disney Chapel we have to go down the north nave aisle, and that arch we see ahead of us leads through to it. And as we come along here we pass 18th century box pews and 17th century bench ends. Just noticing as we're coming along here that on these pillars here, these 15th century pillars, there are remains of medieval painting. You just see bits of red and yellow ochre. And if I just pan around, there's even more on this pillar here. You see bits of yellow ochre and red ochre, so there was some painted decoration in this church, which is lovely to see. Okay, panning around again, and just as we go into what is the Disney Chapel, up above the arch, there is this cheeky little head sticking his tongue out at us. Very cheeky indeed. Okay, so now we're going to go into the Disney Chapel, which is on the north side of the chancel. At some point at the end of the 13th century, the very last decade of the 13th century, or the first decade of the 14th century, the Disney family, Disney means from Isney. They were a Norman family who came from Isney in Normandy, moving over here at the Norman Conquest and being given lands. And they added this chapel on the north side of the chancel, which contains some of their monuments. So let's come in. Here we are. So now it's not occupied by the organ, it's also used as the vestry too. So the whole series of really rather splendid monuments in here. And I'm actually going to do my commentary on the monuments at home. So I'm going to video these for you, and then I can give you much more detail when I get home. Okay. Now, the earliest monument in the chapel is this here, built into this burial niche in the north wall of the chapel, a tomb with an effigy of a woman, a member of the Disney family, but we're not entirely sure who she is. We know she's a Disney by the coat of arms that are placed quite prominently on the back of the burial niche itself. It's a really very fine effigy indeed. Probably dates from between about 1290 and 1310 or thereabouts. She's dressed in typical civilian dress of the period, with a wimple and a veil on her head. And as I pan down to the bottom of the effigy, see the wonderful folds of her garments, and at her feet, as was common in this period, is an animal. She has her feet resting on a dog. The position of this burial in this niche in this north wall probably indicates that this woman is either the founder or the wife of the founder of this chapel. A little bit further along the north wall is this tomb chest, which is the tomb of Sir William Disney, who died around 1330. And it's incomplete, sadly. The top slab was originally inlaid with a monumental brass, an effigy of Sir William Disney in full armour under a canopy. But sadly, at some point in its history, the brass has been stolen. And then on the other side of the church is the monument to Sir William's wife, Joan, the daughter of Sir Nicholas Langfort. And it's a fantastic effigy, this one. Really unusual. It's quite crude in its execution, and it shows the upper part of Joan's body peering out of her coffin lid, effectively. On the top of the coffin lid is a cross, the arms of Disney and Langfort, and then her feet stick out of the bottom. And at the bottom of the monument there is another little lapdog. This example sadly rather worn. In fact, the whole monument is really rather worn indeed. Directly above the monument to Joan is perhaps the grandest monument in the chapel, that of her son, also Sir William Disney, who died in the 1350s. It's a recumbent effigy. He's shown in full armour, his hands in the attitude of prayer, and he has a shield with the Disney coat of arms on one arm. Sadly, at some stage he's been vandalised and he has lost his nose. The finest effigy by far in this chapel is this one, and the inscription on it says that it originally covered the burial place, it might not now, of Hortasia, who was the daughter of William Disney, Lord of Norton. This really is a most beautiful effigy. There she lies in the attitude of prayer, with angels holding her pillow, which is supported by a lion, and her feet also rest on a lion too. I personally think this effigy is made even more attractive by the green algal bloom on the surface, which I'm afraid to say, from a conservation perspective, is doing it no favours, and is a consequence of the effigy being on a damp floor. The latest Disney monument is this 16th century brass on the north wall, covered in heraldry, which commemorates 2 generations of the family. Erected in 1580, on the top of the plate are engraved effigies of William Disney and his wife Margaret Joyner, with their 5 daughters and their 4 sons behind them, all labelled with their names. William is in armour, and he and his wife Margaret are kneeling at a prayer desk with their prayer books open, and all their children behind them at prayer too. They are a model of conventional 16th century piety. Then below is their son Richard, who died in 1578, and his 2 wives, Nell, the daughter and heiress of Sir William Hussey, and Jane, the daughter of Sir William Askew, and their children are shown kneeling behind them too. The inscription below says that the life, conversation and service of these 2 men were commendable to their neighbours, that they were true and faithful to their prince and to their country, and that their behaviour was acceptable to Almighty God. What more can you say? So there you go. There's your medieval Disneyland. The Disney Chapel at Norton Disney in Lincolnshire, full of effigies and monuments to this once prominent Lincolnshire family. Now, in this Disneyland, I didn't find Mickey Mouse, but I did find this little cheeky chappie just as I was leaving the church. Thanks very much for watching.